fellow travelers, and welcome to the Versus Stars podcast. Today's guests are Kurt Sasso and Barney Smith. How are you doing, guys?
Hey, good.
This is the
It's
end of
great.
the year extravaganza, so guys, do your intros.
Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode blah, blah, blah. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed Jeff Haas and Kurt Sasso.
Hey, all, I'm Kurt Sasso from Two Geeks Talking, an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, this wonderful end of the year wrap up with an amazing podcast crew with Jeff and Barney.
Well, you guys are getting really professional. Mine sounds so hackneyed compared to you guys. Good job. For now on, I'm saying everything you guys do well.
It's just a matter of experience. That's all. We just have fun with what we deal with.
So, like I said, this is the end of the year show. Literally, at the time of recording, the year ends in 3 more days. It's been a long year. So, tell me, guys, what do you how things went for your year? I'll go with Kurt. We'll go Kurt and then Barney.
Okay. Well, it's been interesting since our last conversation. I think a few months after our last roundtable, the show Two Geeks Talking ended up getting picked up by Atlanta's smart talk radio station 99.1 FM, which is WDJY 99.1 FM. If that's the proper way to do radio calls, I'll have to defer to Barney there since he's a radio station owner of many, many stations. But it got recently picked up. So I've been actually uploading all of not only 2023's interviews, but going back to as far as 2021 and beyond as well too, for till my contract ends with them as of, I believe it's September or October of 2024. So Nielsen's ratings are coming out in January. I'm excited to see that. The show just had over 109 interviews overall this year, which was great. It's kind of the average overall. And as of 2024, I'm already booked into February and into March as well, including the amazing composer from Dirty Dancing as well. So that'll be fun interview in January. But that's about all I have at the moment.
So yeah, so for me, because last time we talked, when we had our roundtable, it was hosted by, was it your show, Kurt, when we were on back in, it was back in end of June,
Something
early
like that.
July. Yeah. Remember that because I was in Cape Cod on my family
Yeah.
vacation. And was that the day after I got in a car accident? I can't remember if it was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So I finally finally finished physical therapy on my shoulder. So now I can so yeah, my physical therapist says, wait, come back every 3 months, I guess. And like if your physical therapist says you come back in 3 months, you're pretty much they give you homework to do and expect you to do it. And by the way, just a side note for anybody that's watching this, if you see that I'm fiddling with stuff, it's because my so for Christmas, my girls wanted Legos. And so of course what I do as a the saving money kind of dad I am, I said, we'll get Legos for you. So then what I did is that I went to Temu. Classic Temu move is like, this is a beautiful thing. It's like a treehouse thing, but no, it's one of those miniature ones. So now I said, you know what? Let me put it together. So I am in the process as we talk, because I love to fidget. I'm working on this tiny, let me just do this here for you. Everybody's getting dizzy. I'm making this tiny bonsai tree thing going on here. So it's yeah, so we're doing that. So if you see me fiddling as we're talking, it's because I'm trying to get this together, because I promised my daughter that I would have it done, but there's still so many pieces left. Anyway, so we were talking when we met when we stopped by Kurt's show. So I was in the process of buying a radio station.
Yeah.
Officially speaking, I have the radio station as of October 3rd. I own the radio station, and that's why in celebration. So this is, Traversing the Stars exclusive. This is the very first time I'm wearing my WKRP t-shirt. So I got that for Christmas. So I decided to put it on to kind of like celebrate this moment. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like took a 180 from working in the nonprofit field for about 10 years. And then jumping headlong into the private sector of buying a legacy brand radio station that's near my hometown. So that's exciting. I've never been in the private sector before, so it's fun because before, when you're working in a nonprofit, if you want to get paid more money, you have to do reviews and actually talk to the board and talk to these like, I think I deserve a raise. But no, when you work in the private sector, if you want to get paid more money, you have to work harder and bring more money into your company, and then you can get paid more. So it's a pretty even thing to do. And it's interesting the difference between, because what the three of us do, we do production, we produce work. Production is different than broadcasting, where broadcasting is just get it out there on the air and then it's gone. Like it's not like there's doing morning road reports and stuff like that. They're not saved anywhere. I record them and then they disappear. And people hear them and then they're gone. So it's interesting to see how much I've learned, working with you guys over the last, several years of like what it means to produce something of value. There's a high quality aspect to what you do with the podcasting piece to it. So learning the difference between production and broadcasting has been quite a journey so far. And yeah, so October 3rd, November, so almost 3 months I've been running a radio station, and luckily I have the previous owners are staying on to
Nice.
train me to make sure that I do it, because it's been their radio station for 40 plus years, so they don't want it to collapse. So they're like, well, it's one of those weird things where I'm like, all right, let me do more and more. Like, well, let's train you one at a time. And I'm thinking, this is my radio station, man. Let me do stuff. So it's one of those things where it's like like I'm anxious to keep moving, but I know that I've only owned it for less than 3 months and they've owned it for 47 years. So they're very, that I want to say they don't have buyer's remorse, but they have, they don't feel bad selling because they didn't want to sell it to
Separation
some
anxiety.
out-of-state conglomerate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even operational anxiety. It's almost like owner, uh, not there's another word for it, where they just kind of miss it almost, where it's like, and before it's so funny. Yeah, like
It sounds like owner's regret, but I think the fact that you're getting job shadowing
right.
for these professionals as well to hand over the keys to the
Yeah.
legacy, I think is amazing to see as well. So I mean, you can't beat that.
Yeah, I think they kind of miss it, and it's all because it was funny. It's like there's almost this realization, like the realization of like they don't own it anymore. It's kind of like hitting them. It's like they also it's funny when they first bought it, like they're like, we want to be out of here in a few months, so we go make a plan. I'm like, all right, let's make a plan. Like, yeah, and then we're gonna go part-time. We want to spend time with our grandkids, blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, sure, because it's a husband-wife team. And then last month they're like, well, let's work more on making sure we have what your expectations are and what you want. I'm like, yeah, we can do that. And then last week they're like, we just really just want to have time off once in a while. We'll be more than happy to stay on. Like, so they're like, it's like they realize that
You could always
the
fire
more
them.
it's like, I can't do that. But there is that point where like they've
Overstayed their
it's
welcome.
kind of pivoted a bit, where they're like they're before they're treating me as an employee because that's all they've ever known. They've never actually had somebody, they've never worked for somebody, but it's switched a bit where they've over the last few weeks I don't know if they had like like ate dinner together and they realized, this is Barney's radio station. We should probably, loop him into more stuff. But it was almost a point where they've been more deferential to me, which has been it's been interesting. So it's steps. It's fun. It's a blast. It's such a blast. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, and I appreciate the exclusive on the T-shirt. I really feel like that's going to break us out right now.
Yeah, I got the WKRP. Yeah.
So when are you throwing the frozen turkeys?
I know. No, they were live turkeys when they dropped them in that episode. They thought they were gonna
I thought they
fly.
were
So
frozen. So
no,
I have to
there was
rewatch
like
that
all the
episode.
humanity. Yeah, it was like they're like, but they're birds. That was the whole joke, as I thought they were birds and that they flew.
Oh, good times. But Jeff, you've been killing it yourself with your interviews this year as well too. I mean, Will Wheaton, a bunch of others as well.
I've gotten some good ones. Yeah, my Rose, Joseph Marcel, the Jeffrey Butler from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was a cool
Yeah.
one. We got a lot of people from Star Trek. I got a little hindered by the actor strike. That was rough, and the writer strike, because it kind of cut out half my guests for about 3 months there. So I was like, living in in indie comic land for a little while, which is a little rough. You kind of think indie comics, consider how many people are in indie comics, would be bigger in the view count, but I find that indie comic people don't actually watch indie podcasts.
Right.
Like even the shows that are coming on, they're not even watching, or I guess as we know, promoting the shows on, which is an unfortunate reality, I think, of the indie world.
Yeah, it's something that we touched on back in June as well too. So I haven't expected it. Now, that's not to say that it's only a small percentage that don't share their stuff. Obviously, let's put that caveat in front of it as well too, lest we alienate the indie community. But the fact that I've had some interviews more recently have just done well, a lot better than my average, which is great to see. And maybe it was the content, maybe it was a new title, a better description, who knows? But I think that it comes back to who the guest is and what they're sharing, and if they have a past perchance for actually sharing their own interviews or their own content, and then taking it a step further and actually taking the time to make short content out of it, which I haven't had time to do.
Well, I noticed one trend in my listenership that I think is different from ever I had before. Usually, when I would launch an episode, all my views would for that episode come within the first 2 days, and then would kind of drop off. Now it's like a low. I don't get many views in the first 2 days, but it's a steady increase throughout weeks. Which I find is I don't know if that's guys are noticing a pattern as well of a different type of listenership.
I mean, for me, it's been kind of a consistent, like I'll get that first 2 day hit and then I'll get a little downfall. But I found a lot of my older content is getting a more of an uptick in general, like Erica Eleniak and things like that. I don't know how or why, but people are searching about her specifically, or Missy Pegreen, things like that. But that's just my old content though. So I think some of the newer stuff, it's been more along the lines of first couple of weeks it'll be average, and then maybe I'll get a bit of an uptick one day or another, or sometimes it'll just kind of stay.
Oh, Barney.
So for me, like it's some of the videos just like every 100 episodes I interview another Barney Smith. So I actually ended up episode 300 I interviewed a famous a cappella music conductor from London. And he has his own like a cappella group that tours around the world and stuff like that. So I actually interviewed him. I did that like back in August. And then for some reason that episode kind of like blew up out of nowhere because it's kind of an evergreen episode. Like it's not, I mean, that's the thing, talking about before we mentioned before about the indie comic stuff. Um I have actively not proactively searched for indie comic creators. If they call me and say, hey, if they met me, can I come on your show? I'm like, yeah, sure. I usually kind of leave a few empty spots open that are available like a month out or so. But and that's the thing. And this is the other challenge that I think that we kind of face on too, is like we mentioned last June, is like indie comic creators need to think about the stuff we do is that we create product for them to utilize, like to advertise their own work. And that's why we really focus on talking about, what's coming on. But the hard part about it is when we're talking to indie creators on something that is specific to a project that actually is time sensitive. Those are the hard parts. And I know when I've had some interviews, I said, listen, let's make this evergreen. Let's not, we can talk about your Kickstarter, we can talk about that stuff, but that has a shelf life that goes pretty darn fast. And so that's something which is super hard. And what you both of you do as well is um you end up finding guests that people want to hear about 3 months from now or 4 months from now, or learning more about that how somebody creates their work or using some of that stuff. And so um and yeah, as you're saying, Kurt, it's hard to spend all that energy, and we say like a 1 hour episode is going to take you at least 3 hours to
Mm.
edit and all this stuff and all that time to make sure that it's time well worth spent, because you're doing something for somebody. And where's the return? Share it. We were talking before. Share the video I just spent hours on producing for you,
Well, but it also comes to, speaking of evergreen, it comes back to the questions you ask as well. Because
Right.
most recently, I had and this won't release until January, but I had out of the blue, Liam Brown. Yeah, Liam Brown from the Knights Esports Group out of Pittsburgh. They do the National North American Challengers League, which is like a tier two Valorant, whatever. Anyhow, long story short, he talked to me about esports in terms of being an executive, being a player, and all of that stuff. So it just comes back to the questions that I think you ask of your particular guest. If you can
Right.
find not generic questions, but specific questions that maybe someone will search in a Google search or whatever, and that can pull more information if you make that into a short clip. Things like that that gives you longevity or gives your show and that episode longevity. Because at least with YouTube, you can link a short to a long format interview. So at least now you have cross promotion from your channel itself, which is even great.
Well,
Um,
I'll say that brings up a point. I will say when I ask questions that I'm curious about. I don't know. Like I know there's a thing you can either ask for your interview for your audience or interview yourself. I must admit, I think I interview more for like myself and
yeah,
what I want to know.
Right.
but that's good though. I mean, and when I say generic questions, I'm saying based on the guest itself. And yeah, there are going to be cases where they'll say something and you'll just think of a question on the spot, and it's great to see their reaction and brightness of their eyes, and then they're actually engaged in the question you've asked.
No, I was gonna say is like that the point that you brought up is like where you're asking the questions that you want to ask, like you're curious about. Reminds me of what was it Chuck Jones who said that um like how does he make the Looney Tunes? How come it's so funny? He goes, I actually don't make cartoons for other people. I make cartoons that I want to watch.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you end up doing that. And then one of the things that I learned, just one of the things I just learned in like the radio broadcasting world as well is like when you're kind of talking, to kind of doing things, imagine not that you're talking to like when you're doing like I've used this recently with my interviews is that you imagine who your audience is that you're talking to, and that kind of helps you kind of steer the questions. A lot of the times when I've been doing the interviews, I really make it like I'm having an intimate conversation with the guest that I'm talking to, and just really make sure it happens. And then the beautiful thing about not doing it live anymore is then I can edit it out
Yeah.
after the fact, so make it sound like I'm asking good questions, but oh man, I edit that big time. So
I'm
Oh, editing has saved my life a few times. I was like,
oh yeah.
oh, did I really say that out loud a few times? My God. Edit it,
Hey,
edit it, edit it.
and you guys were complaining about me doing my tight edits as it was, but I mean, there's a reason for it. Because even taking it a step further, as much as you can edit out your own flubs, you can not influence the flow, but make the flow better for the
mhm.
guest itself and make them better than maybe the particular question was. Maybe they coughed during the middle of it, and you definitely want to cut that out because their point was just so great. But even when it comes to because of this Atlanta radio station that I'm part of, I've had to go through and actually re-edit a lot of my content because of the limitations of radio, which is 58 minutes in total. And podcasting, we have so much freedom when it
Yeah.
comes to time and length and the guests and everything like that, where it gets to the point that I had to re-edit my introduction, re-edit my outro, and
Oh,
go through the beginning of actually I had to go through every single interview for the most part for the past 3 years and edit that intro again inside the actual thing. So I cut out a lot of stuff, or maybe I was doing my rapid fire segments and I don't need the rest of that intro that I did there because it's redundant and it's pointless to reiterate. So,
right.
you know, understanding the radio side of things has brought a new perspective to how is the flow of the interview itself? Am I really changing that much in it? Or can I break it down even further to be a lot tighter than it is? Because now I can take that episode and, that was an hour or whatever. I can re-release it on my podcast and say, oh, look, now here's a tighter version of this. And it's a new episode you haven't heard yet.
All right. So, like I said, we've been a year. You've all had many guests. Do we have a favorite guest or a favorite moment that we had over the year with a guest that we thought to ourselves, this is a podcast right here. This is why I do it.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Have you thought about ever like in doing an interview show, Jeff? That was a great question.
One of these days I'm gonna just do something,
Hey, 2024, that's the starting goal, right? Like
A great meme I saw was that in 2000 that no one has ever said 2024 is gonna be my year. We've learned our lesson. I love that meme and I'm gonna stick to it.
that's good. That needs to be on a t-shirt until the next year.
Yeah, what I gotta say though, I mean, when it comes to I was the eternal optimist. I'm like, I'll just think, I mean, and here's the thing, if you're able, and this is what I think I was telling my wife, you can find something bad about anything and you'll find it. If you look for it, you'll find it. If you find good things about it, you'll find good things about things. So that's I would say, and by the way, I put you guys on my featured channels on my podcast, on my YouTube. I mean, you guys did the same thing for my YouTube channel too, I'm sure. So
I think I
it's no
did,
big
yeah.
deal.
Appreciate that.
But
Mhm.
let me look at
I
somebody
think,
else can answer first. I'm trying to find my last year of videos.
yeah, I'm just kind of looking through my feed on my phone here. So I think for me, I had Lucas Turnbloom back on after about 7 or 8 years, actually, which was great because, of course, the creator of How to Cat and Dream Jumpers with Greg Grunberg and a few other things he's done as well too. So that was a great conversation to have, and he has some interesting projects coming in 2024. I'm sure I'd love to have him back on. Um, I started doing a podcasting series that I really should finish. that should be interesting because I have all the scripts laid out. I just have to put it together. Um, had a couple of I had an RIP interview with Frank Jordan, who passed away this year. That was tough. He was, of course, the creator of Company Man Comic, and that was a fun interview, and his humor will be sorely missed for sure. And then, of course, Fred Kennedy, who is creator of the Star Wars drama series Mud 79, a fan created series specifically. And that was really well done too. And then, of course, Marina Freeman Watts from the Better Call Daddy show, who was also part of the Jerry Springer show back when television was reality television. So those are some of the ones that I can quickly go through that were memorable in my opinion.
I think for me, one of my favorite ones was interviewed Jem. I think it's Migulu. I might get the last name wrong. And it was a great interview, and it's become my highest viewed interview I've ever had. And it's one of those interviews where I liked it a lot, but like that teaches you never know which ones are going to be your big ones.
Mhm.
It's like it never like blew up, but it's just every week, or it's like 200 views a week. It's like clockwork.
Nice.
And it's just been amazing, and it's been a great interview, and get a lot of comments on that one, a lot of likes. So that's been one of my favorite ones that I've done. Which is actually going to bring me to my next question, which is one thing I'm trying to figure out how to make happen. How to increase my social interaction online. Now, for someone who is a podcaster, I'm extremely introverted. I do not like I do like talking a lot, especially like over in the internet. But there's people online, some of these shows and some of these podcasts that do a fantastic job of being in communication with their listeners. Like contact texting, back and forth commenting.
Mhm.
I'm not one of them. How do we make that happen?
You just got to do it. I mean, you got to break out of that introverted zone and actually, especially with the amount of with the guests that you have on your show, because you have a high quality of guests, because you have a high quality of, you're asking great questions, you're getting these amazing guests on the show, you're doing some teasing things as well too, saying, I saw some of your social media posts um, regarding, oh, hey, remember this show from the 90s, from say the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, who do you think my guest is? That was a great way to bring up, interaction and engagement and things like that. And even better is, like, you could start engaging in your comments in the video interview itself as well too, as the just to have your
Mm.
demographics and traction in that respect. Blanked for a second. But you could, I'm sure, out of that content that you have, you could easily pull shorts from your content. And I really think you need to do that to really get more engagement, to get more people coming back or whatever. And it's all about the hooks. And that's something I've been researching more recently, is about hooking people with short content. And it's not about doing 1 minute shorts all the time. You can make shorter content, 30 seconds or less even, that'll drive better traffic, but it's still about that intro hook as well. And there's a couple of things I've downloaded, a couple of things I've interacted with as well too. And it's just kind of given me a better perspective as to what I should actually be focusing on. And I think from a social engagement perspective, keep doing what you're doing. Tease the interview, tease the guests that you have with that, hey, remember this show from the 90s or whatever, who's your favorite guest?
I would say I got caught on one. It does happen a few times.
I
Where
would
I've actually teased a guest who decided not to show up after all. That's
Yeah.
happened once or twice, which has been, I won't say which guest recently did it, but it was a recent one. I was like, oh, I've kind of announced you to like everybody are coming on my show.
Just consider it another part of social interaction and try to get them back on another time if that happens. If it does, great. If not, no one's going to remember it in 5-10 minutes.
So a couple of things that I'm thinking of on this, what you brought up, Jeff, is that last year, about a year or so ago, I interviewed and she was like on live with Regis and Kathy Lee. Well, before now it's live with someone, I can't remember, but she's been on some daytime stuff as a professional cosplayer. And so she came on, and one of the questions I asked her is I said, she does a lot of stuff with like kids and stuff like that and everything. And I asked her, I said, uh, and I brought up to the question is that when, working in the comic book world, you'll see people who want to try to promote their comic books by making a costume of their superhero that's in their books, like that. And I pointed out, I was like, you're having people that make comic books make outfits, and that's two completely different skill sets. Sometimes I've seen this outfit like, you know what? I am never going to read your comic book just based off of how poorly designed that cosplay outfit is. Why would I like if this is what if this is your so it's like, and she said, yeah. And then the point she brought up is like, and she was like imploring indie comic creators, if you want to promote your comic book, hire a cosplayer to design the costume, because that is a completely different skill set that you're working with. Same thing when you're talking about comic creators who's like, I can write a script, but I don't know how to draw it. So what you do is you hire someone to do that. So the point that I'm trying to make here, Jeff, and this is a self-realization on my part as well, that, we produce podcasts. It's a completely different skill set to promote the podcasts. So yes, you can do it. You can do it poorly, but it's one of those things where we've asked the same question numerous times to our guests and say, you have $500 and you're writing a comic book. What should you spend your money on? They say, oh, artist. Always spend the money on the artist. Or if you're interviewing an author, they say, what do you spend? It's like, always spend it on an editor. And that could be the question that we could pose ourselves to say, we're producing work. What should we spend our money on? You know what it is? Maybe we should spend our money on hiring a promoter to do the social media on our behalf because it's a different skill set. We're used to doing everything ourselves. We're used to setting up the microphones, doing the engineering, learning the editing software, doing all this stuff. We by default as podcasters feel as though we should do everything. So that's just kind of a conversation that I'm having with myself to say, maybe that's something we should think about to kind of bring us to, because we literally have a sea of content that's sitting on the internet right now, and among all other seas of content. So how do you get yourself above that? It might be trying to find somebody who knows how to do that.
So leads me to my next question for you guys, which is, in this long year, what did we learn about podcasting? Any aspect of it that you've picked up on over the last year that maybe you didn't know before? Any words of wisdom for the year 2024?
Uh, I don't know. That's interesting. I think for me specifically, uh, trying to trying to showcase that being a podcaster, as much as we love doing the free interviews, we should still get paid in some way, shape, or form. I'm still a proponent of that because based on our skill sets and based on just exactly like we just talked about, we are social media promoters, we are social media managers, we are editors, we are interviewers, we are producers. We have all of these skill sets that people continuously take advantage of, and rightly so, because they want to promote their product, and we want to have them on as guests, and that's great. But because we have such specialized skills, and I'm trying not to pull that whole Taken reference, and the fact that we have these skills, the fact that we are well versed in all of these aspects, we have tip jars, we have the ability to tip us, we have the ability to use our knowledge base to do advertising for said guests and said products, etc. We have all of these capabilities, but if we don't have anything coming into us, then the onus is on us to find other alternatives for finance, because being a freelancer, being an independent podcaster, it is very tough. And speaking from personal experience for 15 plus years, everyone takes advantage of the free stuff. But honestly, if I can't keep the lights on, then this show is going by the wayside.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea that you brought up too. One of you two talked about it's just like getting just a contract. So there's different things. If I'm reaching out to you, like I got recently I had uh Catherine Patterson, who is the author of Bridge to Terabithia. She's like 93 or something like that. I reached out to her. I'm not going to make her sign, some sort of like guest contract, but if people reach out to you, I love the idea, and you guys do this better than I do, is saying, here's the expectations. And when Jeff, so one of the things I do got to say too is, like, I had a successful Kickstarter this year, and that was because, Jeff was my guy. He helped me out. One of the things that I loved about going on other people's podcasts is how they do it. And I loved what one person did is like, this is what we do. And the expectation is that you subscribe to my YouTube channel before you come on my YouTube channel. Like, I'm like, yeah, he didn't say it in that so many terms, but it was like, it's important that you share the stuff and it's important that you actually are, are a subscriber to that. I mean, because you're coming in on free, to do this. So there was a lot I learned, and some of them had like, this is how you get on StreamYard, like all these kind of things that was like, there's a lot of good stuff I learned from that. And that would be something, Jeff, to answer your question of what did I learn from this year, was learning how other podcasters do their podcasts and learning that I'm doing this now. I'm on my 4th year, and learning that I'm I've gone pretty far on I'm watching and always watching your old ones to see the cringeworthy interviews that you do. Like, oh man, that was so bad. Like, I'm just like, it's like it helps you to feel good knowing that you've gone you've gone farther. So yeah.
I
I will
think
say
that's
the worst few hours of my week is listening to my show while I'm editing. And I'm just like,
oh yeah.
I'm a bitch. It's like if I could just edit out myself, it'd be a much better
Well,
show.
I mean, technically you could if you put title cards of what your question actually is and they go right into their thing. But I mean, come on. You've done it for this long. You're a little too far gone to attempt that now.
Well, I will say what I've learned is that I'm getting better at riding the wave,
Hmm.
which I'm finding the ups and downs of podcasting is brutal. Like I like I'll have like last month was fantastic for me. I had like a huge blow up in subscribers.
Mhm.
I had one of my biggest months of viewership ever. This month, again the opposite. I'm thinking to myself, experiencing that wave and being okay with it is I think what I'm learning, I'm getting better at every few months. So it's like, you know what, the show uh underperformed for me. But you know what? I've seen shows now underperform, and in 3 or 4 months they've blown up.
Mm.
So I'm getting better at sitting back going, okay, next month could be it'll blow up, maybe the month after, whatever. It doesn't
Hmm.
mean anything. I think it's the hardest thing is to be that we are our own pump people. You know what I'm saying? We're like our promoters and we're like we're own cheerleaders, and that's hard sometimes. I
Yeah.
think I'm trying to
Right.
learn to be like, that's okay. Next month, this will happen, or this these views you'll get in this show, or this guest will come on, better guest in this month than you had last, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, like just in terms of a year in review overall, I did something that I didn't think I've done in forever, which is a survey. Now, reason I was doing a survey was because someone on a social media said, have you ever asked for feedback as a podcaster? And what was the result of that? And I said, well, I've been doing the show for 15 years. I've asked for feedback and I've gotten crickets. And they're like, well, have you done a survey? And I'm like, no, I don't think I have. So I put together a survey, and it's between the spam of the variety of people from all over the world, which was very difficult to sort through. Um, some of the responses, whether they're real or genuine, gave me some interesting feedback, which is like, okay, better audio quality, whatever, better video quality. Okay, who is a guest you'd like to see on the show? And besides like 50 for Elon Musk, which that's never going to happen, there was a lot of interesting suggestions, is what it boiled down to. So, maybe if in 2024 you want to get feedback on your shows, put together a quick 10-question survey, promote it on your social medias, and get whatever feedback you can from it to see how maybe you can improve. It doesn't mean you have to do all the suggestions, but at least it's a grain of salt that you can take with whatever comes your way.
Now, one thing that's
Did
kind of
I think I filled that out,
You
Kurt. Did
did,
you fill that
yeah.
out?
I've seen
Yeah.
your name. One of the real people out of the 908 that have filled
And
it out.
I think I said as a guest you should have like Jeff Haas on. I think I
oh
said
Oh
that.
yes,
no,
most certainly,
you
yes. I bring
I
in the
th-
big views.
yeah, I think you said me as well too, or something.
I
I
think I
don't
said
know.
Kurt Sasso needs to be
Yeah, I
on
was
the
like,
Kurt
it's like, really,
Sasso
come
show.
on, really? Like,
Well, I think one thing that's also kind of interesting is, okay, I hit 700 subscribers. You have 800 something. Bart, I think you're in the 800, 900. You're both in the high 800s, I think.
Mhm.
No, I'm like no, my no, I'm like 300 something.
I'm
On
I'm in
YouTube?
the low 800.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
either way, each episode is not bringing in 700, 300, 800 views.
Right.
No,
So how do we make those subscribers actual viewers and not just people who subscribed and do nothing? How do you make them active?
it comes back to your content. It comes back to what type of content you're putting together. I still think the short content is still viable and valid. I think that's something that'll drive your interest. I think your social media engagement, whatever the case may be, whether it's hinting at the guest or whether it's as putting together, other snippets that you've done, I think in the past as well too. figuring out a way to keep your audience engaged in some way, shape, or form, whether it's like asking a question in your comments or whether it's responding to the comments. I think it just comes back to how much time can you actually put into re going through your content, going through your comments, going through your audience and saying, yes, I may not respond all the time, and I apologize for that, but I want to interact and engage with you. And instead of just promoting like the channel or the show itself, continue to ask questions as the content is going and to make sure that you can get their responses back as well too. Now, just
Well,
don't
and I'll,
respond to something 10 years ago and then they're like, wow, classic response from a YouTube channel.
right. I mean, so I mean, there's different audience is different for the genre of the medium that you're using too. I mean, so that's I for one gear more towards getting comments and likes on the audio podcast because that seems to be where I get more pull from the audio podcast. The YouTube itself, for me, it's when you're doing it it it's the audience that are drawn towards, say, what I do is like, authors or children's book authors and stuff like that, get less, the audience for those are not are more inclined to listen to it in driving in the car than they would be watching a video of it on YouTube. I use YouTube because I personally love YouTube. I love interacting in YouTube. YouTube is the one it's like the first app I open up. It's that I'll do on. But really anybody that you talk to, and let's just say my wife has a YouTube channel. She's got like almost 6,000 subscribers because she does makeup tutorials that are like 10 minutes long. So that's what people usually, the subscription piece to that is going to be that. So it's, it's also hard because there's so much out there for like all these social media aspects, is that each one caters to a different genre of audience and also genre of interaction. So it's hard. And like you say, it's like you see a lot of the more successful YouTube channels will be like a 10-15 minute video, and they'll give you a call to action in between there to say, this is my top 10 favorite Marvel movies. What's your top 10 favorite? And it's just like this, and like, and don't forget they always say that, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out with their numbers. And they always this mantra that they'll say that I've never really done in my interviews. So, yeah.
For a little while, I had that little thing that came on that showed the subscribe and like thing would pop up. And I stopped using it because for some reason I can't get it to work well on the new editing equipment I have. But I don't notice any change in the number of subscribers I have. I don't think it does anything necessarily. I don't think it did anything. I think I find that I need about 200 views to get a subscriber. It's for every 200 views I get a subscriber. I think that's usually how the math works out. I don't know which ones get it. Some shows I have some episodes where I've had huge view counts, very little subscribers, and I have ones where I had almost no views, but everyone who views seems to subscribe. And I don't know about quality. I don't think I'm that significantly better or worse on any given show. I will find that I've yet to understand, I think, how this actually all works.
I think that's something that everyone is still trying to figure out. And I'm sure between the algorithm and between how your description is in your video interview itself and what your title is like, I think it comes back to how engaging is your title, how engaging is your thumbnail as well. I think everyone could do better work on their thumbnails and not do the classic, whatever you see Mr. Beast does, etc. Like there's certain avenues where, like, say, an interview show, like Inside You podcast, that's a very simplistic but notable way to get a thumbnail because you know who the guest is, the color scheme of that channel, and it's going to be very simplistic and to the point. But the title that Michael Rosenbaum's crew uses is very engaging and interactive, and the content in the actual description is shortened to the point, but it still has the other call to actions right below it. So maybe reformatting the titles, reformatting the descriptions, reformatting your your call to actions in the actual content itself is something to look forward to in 2024 so that you can engage better with your audience in some way, shape, or form, not by ramming it down their throat saying like and subscribe.
All right, so we're now living in a time of the death of Twitter. It feels like we're looking at the end of it. Facebook is algorithm crazy. What do we look like in the future for social media for promotion?
I think for me, and it comes back to Instagram. I mean, it's going to come back to basically what I've been saying all show here is short content. Like literally, it is going to be short content on Instagram Reels, on Facebook, on Instagram stories, Facebook Reels. I'll throw it up on Twitter as well, whether it gets traction or not. It's still something there, and I'll throw it up on Blue Sky as well, just because it's available. But because Facebook and Instagram are tied together, the Meta Business Suite makes posting content and stories and everything like that automatically so much easier these days. And I've been really taking advantage of that with the Instagram and Facebook Reels on Monday, Tuesday, and then I'll do an Instagram post on Wednesday and then a Facebook post on Thursday. And I've been keeping that consistent in the next couple of months, and I'll keep doing that because it's just so easy to do. And if there was something better like that where you could interact without paying for it, and so that you could post on all of these different social medias at once, I think it would alleviate a lot of our struggles as content creators and promoters to get it to the platforms that we need to, and just make it a whole lot easier for all of us. So I think Instagram, do your short content and post it on those social medias and drive back towards the full interview in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's an art form. It's a skill set to do social media. It's not, and as you say, it's like some of the time it's you post things online. I mean, I had Brad Geiger on too, Kurt, after you did. And so one of the things that you talk about is just like you got to use social media as a tool and not making it think that it's going to solve all your problems. Just because you have people clicking on things and liking things doesn't mean it's going to convert into product or funds. It's really what it comes down to as well, is just being a part of a community. So the only way you're going to get activity from the social media is if you are actively engaged in the community that would purchase what you have. And that's the thing, Jeff, like I mean, your numbers are high because of the fact that you are concentrating on, interviewing people that other people want to hear about too, and hearing their stories. And it comes down to asking really good questions. You have Terry Gross from, National Public Radio, NPR, will have completely amazing conversations with people who, he's like, I didn't need to know about who, what invented this vaccine, like, or whatever, like, or this scientist that did this, or that famous ballet dancer I never heard of until just now, and now I'm really intrigued by her story. Like, so there's two parts to it. Is one, it's you gotta find the audience for it, and the second part is make it engaging. There, interviewing is an art form. It's not just simply like asking people questions that like you would do at like a job interview. It's like, well, what's your favorite puppy? Like, no, it's like get into their heads and make it fun. And that's another skill set that I have far from mastered, is the art of the interview and how to keep people engaged. That's why there's famous interviewers. There's like, Larry King. There's people that are like, well, we'll have just a talking heads thing like we're doing right now, and people are enthralled by the conversations because you're a maestro, you're a conductor of conversations and words. That's what it is. And the hardest part about it is like when you do it like we're doing, you're weaving air. Like we're talking, we're not writing this conversation now, we're talking. And there is something magical about that is so ephemeral about it, that kind of brings everybody together. So yeah,
But if you're excited about the actual guest as well too, and you're engaged in the
yeah.
conversation, and you show that energy, it actually transfers a lot better to it. Whether it's an edited version or whether it's a live show. Like if you're happy about the guest that's on the show, or you're not happy about the guest who's on the show, you're still engaged in the conversation overall, and you want to make sure that energy is transferred through. Now, it's tougher for an hour-long interview because we're introverted people as a whole, I think, for the most part. I mean, Barney just exudes extroverted by nature, I can tell. But I think it's just like if we're engaged and we're excited, that transfers to the interview, that transfers to the people listening as well. And I think we all could do with a little shot of energy, whether it's Monster Energy drink or whether it's a fifth pot of coffee you put on for the show.
So
Yeah.
now that we're looking at 2024, right around the corner, who is your dream guest to get next year? Who's your goal for a guest to get next year? Like if you're going to work your butt off 2024 to get this one guest, who's it going to be?
I'll let you go, Barney.
Man, I've been trying to get this guy named Jeff Haas on my show for the
Yeah.
longest.
For the big interviews, yes. Yeah, I'm a hard guy too. All you have to do is be like, "Hey, you want to come on?" And I
Sure.
So I'm trying to think of like there's always, I think it's the same thing I said last year. Some of those like really famous children's book authors coming on. Like I just love the ones I've had on. There's two stereotypes that I've seen with children's book authors that are like they are so full of themselves that they just look like annoyed that they're there talking to me. And the other ones are just like super chirpy like a character in their own children's book. And they're so fun and genuine with the questions like, I make children's books, why would I not be happy? And the other one thinks like they're anyway. I've had a few of those, but I mean I would say like some of those classic ones that are still alive I think are good. Catherine Patterson, that was a really exciting one to get. So and yeah, so that would be mine. I don't need anyone particular, I look forward to the next quarter. I think I'm doing the March, right?
Yeah,
The March
I think so.
quarterly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, see? Yeah.
Nice.
Looking forward to that.
Lucky you. All right, Kurt, your turn. Who's the guest that you're going to be making happen in 2024?
I have no idea. To be fair, I think I want to go back to the list on whether it's real or fake. I want to go back to the list from my survey from this year and see, is it possible to get any of these people? Because I think that would be a good goalpost for me, because as much as we love doing the indie creators and indie scene in some way, shape, or form and entertainment, we need to step it up as a whole and get a higher quality of guest. And I think that's the only way we can improve, not only as interviewers, but that's the only way to get more eyes on our shows, respectively. And it's not that we're putting aside the indie scene. It's just we've done our due diligence. We've done our time with the indie scene, and we still want to promote them, but we also have to improve as people. We have to also have to improve as interviewers. And it's just something different when you get a seasoned professional of whatever genre it is, and you're not asking them the same cookie cutter questions that they always get. You're actually diving into their creative process. They're diving into themselves as people. And I think that's something that we can all improve on in some way, shape, or form. So, you know what, Jeff? I'll send you the list of people I have, and we'll figure out something in that respect if possible, and go from there.
My goal in 2024, I'm putting this out there right now. Neil Gaiman is my goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. I'm gonna make this one happen. I've asked him multiple times and he refused it. But at least he fused it to me directly, which is nice of him. And then Michael Dorn. Those are my two goals for 2024. I'm gonna put it out there right now, make it happen.
Yeah.
So let me know in 2024 in December if I'm full of shit or not. But those are my two goals right now. I'm guessing that yes, I'm full of shit, but you never know.
Look, if you got Will Wheaton, I think you'd get Neil Gaiman, no problem. So there you go.
He apparently is always too busy. I always ask him, he's like, no, I'm too busy. I got things going on. I'm just like,
Then just get him on for 15 minutes. Don't even do.
I told him 10 minutes. I said,
Oh,
I
wow.
need 10 minutes of your time. It was gonna be for my 3-year anniversary show. I was like, my 3 years coming up. I want you as my guest. He goes, I said 10 minutes. But I said on Blue Sky too. And he was like, unfortunately, a little too busy for that time now. Sorry. I was like, anytime in November, just give me the time and I'll do it. They just never responded back. He's like, oh shit. Can't lie that much. But he's my goal, Neil Gaiman, because he's one of those dream guests. So I'll say Neil Gaiman, Michael Dorn are my 2 goals for 2024 to
Nice.
make happen.
That's good.
Those are good
So
goals. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, why the hell not aim high, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And the worst
Yeah.
thing that happens is that one of the 10 people who watch this episode will call me out next year and be like, you didn't get them. I'll be like, listen, you 10 people, at least you watched 2 episodes now to tell me that I didn't do it. So there it is.
But there's your engagement. There's your social engagement right there, like we want.
Right.
Yeah, and you know what? I think our listeners should actively be getting these guests for. I mean, go to these people and demand they come on my show, our show,
Right.
Yeah.
right? Make that
Works for me.
happen.
You could do that. You could start doing this thing is like, count down to when Neil Gaiman comes on my show. And you could just keep resetting it.
Yeah.
Like,
It's been those safety things.
and then
the
tag him in it
signs.
and tag him in all the Blue Sky things until he like blocks
Actually,
you.
that'd
But
be
it's like, yeah.
Seriously, do that as like and just on the bottom corner of your screen as an overlay. Say
Yeah.
it has been this many days since I've requested Neil Gaiman on the show, and keep that counter going
Yeah.
as you do every interview.
You gotta let me know how to set that up. Because that'd be funny on social media, everyday post. It's been 1 day without Neil Gaiman on my show. It's been 2 days without Neil Gaiman on my show.
You'll either get a cease and desist letter, or you'll finally get him on your show.
You know
Right.
what? Have you ever seen Big Bang Theory?
Yeah.
When he has the autographs on his restraining orders from was it Leonard Nimoy? I think had one.
Yeah.
I can't remember who the other 2 were, but they were on. He has it on his wall. The autographs from the cease and desist.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah.
That'd be hysterical, or it could get me to a lot of trouble. I'm not sure, but it would be funny either way.
Worst case, you get blocked. I mean,
Oh yeah, that'd be painful. Being blocked by Neil Gaiman. Ugh, that'd be painful.
No, think about it. Not a lot of people have actually like has Neil Gaiman recognize you and say, all right, I'm just gonna block this dude. Like he did that's that in its way. And then you can change the timer to say it's been 5 days since I've been blocked by Neil Gaiman. So you can just switch it out a bit. See?
that'll be social engagement on a whole other level.
I will have
see?
proven myself the most annoying person on social media.
No,
that's not
there's plenty more.
possible.
There's plenty more. Yeah,
There's
that's yeah.
plenty more.
Yeah.
All right, so those are our guest goals. What's our other goal for 2024? What do we want to see happen on our show? By the time 2025 happens, January 1st, 2025, what has happened on our show that we're proud of by that point?
I think for me, try to get to 900 subscribers would be a nice touch. Higher quality of guests in general, I think, would be fantastic as a whole. It just means that I've gotten to another level as a person and as an interviewer. I think that more social media engagement as best as I can do it as an individual person as well, and try to keep promoting the paid and the free interviews as I've been trying to do all this year, and figure out a better price point overall. And I think it just comes back to just trying to improve in some way, shape, or form. Not big steps, just every day something new and something different that I can improve on, whether it's internal, whether it's show wise, or whether it's another person, or maybe a new set of questions that I haven't asked yet. So I think it's an improvement year of 2024.
For me, I think what I'm going to do is like, so when I file my taxes, I'm actually, because I have my Storycomic as an LLC, I'm just going to file his taxes and just see the lot. And I want to see if I make money with it this year. That's going to get sponsorships. And I know we talked about it. Because for the listeners and viewers out there, we have a chat group, like the 3 of us and Cody, good old Cody. He's there. Is like one of the things that we bantered about was having what's called a promo swap, where we help promote each other. Because that's the other thing too, is that podcasters will listen to podcast listeners will listen to other podcasts. So the caveat to that is being able to then we all have our own audience that could easily cross-pollinate. And so that would be my piece, is that we could, is work on that. But yeah, getting sponsorships for it would be cool. I would love to do some of that stuff. And the hardest part about it is making sure you have sponsorships that fit within the mission and values of your own podcast as well. So
Yeah.
My goal is 1,000 subscribers by January 2025, so I can start making some money. So 2025,000 subscribers. My goal is to average 150 views per episode. If I can make that happen, I will have grown at the very least by 50% in a year, which I think is reasonable.
Good.
Yeah.
So those are my two goals: 150 views per episode on average, and 1,000 subscribers.
And you have the watch hours to back that up too.
You have what?
Do you have
Watch
the watch hours, the 4,000 watch hours then?
Oh yeah.
So-
I've done well on the watch hours. Yeah, I think I'm a little off the 4,000 count now, but I'm in the ballpark of about 3,600.
So once you hit 4,000, if you get 1,000 subscribers and you hit 4,000 at least once, as long as you're uploading interviews, it continues to be monetized.
Yeah, so that's the goal. So I want to do that. I can average out a view count, because right now, and also I want to see my subscriber view count go up. In other words, when you go in the thing where it shows how many were actually from subscribers,
Yep.
I'm low. I'm at like 4%. If I could get that number to 10%, that automatically almost doubles, virtually almost triples my viewer count. So I had to make that 3 to 4% become 10%. That would be huge numbers.
It goes back to everything we talked about this year. It's very possible, very doable. It just takes time. And it sounds like we're all in the same headspace when it comes to trying to make ourselves and our shows better in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
So tell you what, let's do our outro for each. And then we'll call it a year. All right. I don't really have an outro though, so my outro tends just to be,
You got to make an outro. Make that one of your goals in 2024.
make an outro.
Traversing the Stars outro.
See, what I have right now is the Traversing the Stars and the music plays. So I tend to just be like, Traversing the Stars, and then it just plays out.
You need that call to action.
All right. So we'll do a practice one right now. All right. This is Jeff with Traversing the Stars. We just listened to Kurt Sasso and Barney Smith. Subscribe to my show. Give me money. All right.
At least you're honest.
Draft one. No, just go. Kurt, you're up.
Well, that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. You can, of course, find this interview and 1,000 plus others on our website, twogeekstalking.com or tgtmedia.com. YouTube channel is youtube.com/TGT Media. Podcast is at twogeekstalking.podbean.com or search for Two Geeks Talking wherever you get your podcasts. And as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking with, of course, Jeff Haas and Barney Smith.
Oh, that's good. So mine is really simple. Mine is thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in to Storycomic Presents. And if you want to learn more about Storycomic, please go to twogeekstalking.com. That is TW.
The website's still being updated. Go to the YouTube channel instead.
No, but that's a good point. Usually my outro is always I usually tell the to the guests, like, come back on anytime you got something. I always like invite them back on, and then I have the music playing near the end, and then for anybody that makes it all the way to the end, I always have a B-roll at the end for like a 30-second piece where I like mess up an interview question or something. But yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna